Welcome to our world-renowned podcast, Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray. I'm a TEDx and keynote speaker and author. Also, I'm executive producer of the movie Show Her the Money. Plus, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. Our weekly show features interviews with powerhouse women founders, funders, and change makers that are sure to inspire you. Let's go. Welcome to this week's episode of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. Also, as you know, executive producer of Show Her the Money movie. And we hope that you've seen it. If not, check out our website, showherthemoneymovie.com. You can also book to screen it. So we are super excited, as always, to have on a wonderful woman entrepreneur. She has an extraordinary 20-year background as a TV anchor journalist. She also just started a new business that I'm super excited to tell you about. It's called Keepsake Studios. So without further ado, let's bring on Priya Clemens. Hi, Priya. How are you?
Hi, Catherine. I'm great and so glad to get to be here with you and chat about all things entrepreneurship and starting out new ventures.
And one of the things I want to emphasize is that you had mentioned, not always easy to combine artistry with entrepreneurship. And I love that you're doing that. So I'm excited to talk about that. Meanwhile, first, let's talk about your incredible background. I mean, you have in the broadcast journalism world, you have won awards like the Murrow Award. Hello. You had Emmy nominations. You've advised cities like City of San Francisco, done galas. Like you have a very eclectic background and worked for some of the major networks out there. Everything from CBS News, NBC, local channels, but I saved the best for last because it's my favorite, MSNBC.
I have. When I was at MSNBC, I was on the presidential campaign trail as what we then called the kids on the bus, sort of a takeoff from Boys on the Bus, right? The Hunter S. Thompson book. And I covered first Dick Gephardt, who was a Democratic nominee. And then when he washed out, I moved on to cover Dick Cheney, who we just learned has passed
Wow.
away at the age of
I
84.
know today. I know. Even though
Yeah.
this is airing not today, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I have to say, I mean, I don't want to get political. I've never been a big fan of his, but I
Mm.
will say I have the utmost respect for his daughter. I think she's been a real trailblazer in that Republican Party, in a way, bringing more Democrats and Republicans together, Liz Cheney. But that's a whole nother Oprah.
It is. It's another story, but it is fascinating, right? And it's so interesting to see where he ended up, where he actually, by the end, was saying, hey, vote for Kamala Harris, don't vote for Donald Trump, considering
Yes.
where he was when I knew him as
Yes.
a campaign reporter, where he was running for his second term in office as vice president as part of the Bush-Cheney ticket and was, you know, it wasn't said out loud then, but he acknowledged it later that he offered to come off the ticket because by that point he'd been seen as the quote Darth Vader of their party because of, his dealings in the past. So things have really shifted over time. And it's fascinating to see as a journalist, I think, the changes that history brings, places that you never think people are going to go. When you start to follow stories literally over decades, you see how they evolve and how people change. And
Yeah.
some of that is the same work that I'm doing in the legacy storytelling that I've brought to the world now, which is saying, what is the arc of a life? And how do we make sure those stories, decision points are captured and carried forward and not lost to the sand
Right.
of time?
And here's the thing. So we're going to talk about Keepsake Studios, your new venture. And I think how lucky are people to have someone with your expertise in journalism to be able to tell their story and leave their legacy. So I think what you're doing is amazing. So let's talk about that. What is Keepsake Studios and how would someone participate in that opportunity?
Mhm. Keepsake Studios is a luxury storytelling business. We do personal documentaries. Our current focus is on telling stories that would otherwise be lost to time, generally the stories of family history. And so, one of the things I love best about what we do is we take all of the scattered pieces and we bring it all together in a really beautiful package that can then live on for generations for a family. So, we gather the stories from people. We gather the family photographs that are so precious and family films, and we digitize everything and we use our storytelling abilities and narrative expertise to then create something that is really compelling and watchable for the next generation. Because it's hard to know who the faces in those photos are after the people who knew them are gone.
Right.
It's very likely that most of those photos end up just crumbling or photo albums get thrown out after a while. And so all of that rich heritage is lost. And now we have the tools to make sure that they can carry on and that we can tag faces and know who those people are, even if you're looking at it as a third or fourth generation to come. So that's in a nutshell what we do.
And here's the thing. When people pass away, and inevitably, I know this happened in my own family, you're like, darn, why didn't I ever ask them about this? And then they're gone, and you can never ask again, what about your grandparents? What about your great grandparents? Where did you grow up? What did you do? You know, not enough of us realize how important that information is that we're going to want to have. And too many people realize it after they're gone, after their
Yeah.
parents or their grandparents are gone. So I love what you're doing. And I do believe every person has a great story. It's why I love doing this podcast platform. Everybody's got an interesting story. Everyone. No two stories are alike, right? No one's lived your life. And I think it's so great to capture that and to have a professional like yourself that really knows what questions to ask and put it together in a beautiful documentary. I don't know what family doesn't want a documentary of their history. I think it's so cool. And I love that that speaks to you so much that that's what you wanted to make your new endeavor about.
Yeah, Catherine, like you said, for many years, decades, I told important stories, but to a very large audience, right? We're talking about millions of people are watching the CBS Evening News where I would anchor on the weekends, or morning news where I was on the news desk, or I traveled around the world, around the country, telling really interesting and important stories, but to a very large audience. Now, in many ways, I feel like I tell the most important stories for people to very small audiences. Those are not stories that are generally broadcast widely. We can look at that, but mostly it is for a family or a community to make sure that they capture those stories that are so important to them. And you're right, for the average person, it becomes an overwhelming task. There are so many stories, there's so many pictures. Where do I begin? I don't want to ask that sensitive question. How do I make sure I get that piece of the story? How do I approach my parent and not make them feel like their story is over, but we want to capture it while it is in progress and while they're still here? So there are a lot of questions, a lot of obstacles that can stop people from doing it for themselves. And it's really where my heart is and where our team has really come to saying we want to be able to use our skills and expertise to bring this to the everyday person. And I'll say the other piece of that is really because we think about the next generation and how they consume media, because it is hard to look at even just memoirs or written books. There's much less reading than used to happen.
Yeah.
Multimedia, TV, video, that's really where the next generation consumes their
Yeah.
content and their information. So we have that skill set. We'd like to bring it to bear for families that understand that value. And I'll say also, Catherine, it's interesting. I think we're really speaking to the planners out there, the people who think ahead and can think like, oh, we're going to want this at some time. It's also something that doesn't have an immediate cultural moment in our lives. If you get a bar mitzvah or you get married or you have a baby, there are these traditions around what it looks like to have media at those moments or to have a family photo shoot as the years go by. But as you get older, there isn't like a set moment in time where you think, oh, I want to make sure I document this. So we really encourage people to think about it for a milestone birthday or a big retirement or just because it's time.
So let me ask you this. You could give them the film, the family, the film just for them, or They
Mhm.
could put it on YouTube if they wanted it to
Absolutely.
be, yeah,
Absolutely. They could
distributed.
broadcast it. And we just we also hold community screenings. So we'll rent out a local movie theater. People can bring their family and their
Cool.
friends and have a big party and celebrate, and then watch a 30-minute or a 45-minute or longer documentary about their family and about that life. And
I
it's
love that.
engaging. What's important to us is that it's engaging and captivating. And like you said, created to the highest levels.
And I will share with you my personal story is I did do a film that included my dad's story, and we did it at a film at a theater. And I think it was like one of the highlights of his life,
Oh.
having everybody learn the journey of his entrepreneurship story. Um, and so I think that's super cool. And that people don't always think about it, that they could actually have their film, they capture their history and put it in a theater for all their family and friends to enjoy, as well as YouTube, if it's something that they think it will benefit other people. How many immigrant stories are out there that would really, benefit young people to learn about on YouTube, especially with this new erasure of history. This is a way to combat that, I think. No one can stop you from telling your personal story and then, you know, releasing that on YouTube or places where more and more people can get that information. In fact, now there's so many video on demand. I know we're doing this with our movie channels, hundreds of them that you
Mhm.
can disseminate films on. Also, where people, you can do it for free or you could actually monetize your film, right?
Mhm.
You could
Mhm.
have a family that has a really fascinating story that people would, pay to see that story. So I think
That's right.
that's,
Some of the stories we hear, just to build on that, some of the
yeah,
stories that we hear, I think this is a multi-part series. It's fascinating what people have
yeah.
gone through in their lives. And, Catherine, also to build on what you were saying about doing it for your own dad, that's how I started actually. It was many
Oh,
years ago.
wow.
I did a film for my dad for his 75th birthday celebration. And
Mm.
yes, because I'm from the industry, I knew how to pull all the pieces together, how to interview him, how to create a little film. And it was a homemade piece, but it was a nice piece. We played it at the time. Everyone enjoyed it. There are pictures from his youth in India, pictures of him coming to the United States, getting
Wow.
married, all of us being young. We moved from California to Europe and then back. So lots of those moments along the way. And then also some of his learnings and wisdom. So it was a great moment. We really enjoyed that. And then a few years later, dad got dementia.
Oh,
And he passed away a couple of years after he was diagnosed, just last fall. And we pulled the film out and we played it at his memorial. And,
oh,
it wasn't something he could have done. By the time he started being sick, it was kind of
right,
too late. He didn't remember those moments in the same way anymore.
right.
But we had them captured. And then when we played it after the memorial was over, I had so many people come up to me with just tears in their eyes saying, "Oh, I want this for my mom, or I want this for my dad, or I wish I had it for my grandparents." And that was the moment for me that I thought, I can help you with this. I can do this for you. We can create this together. And for me, it's interesting, such a mission and such a passion to help people capture those moments before they're gone. And we talk about it in terms of celebrating the living legends in your life while we still can, because they're here and they deserve to understand how much we appreciate them and honor them um, and just value their story, their lived experience.
Yeah. And when I did that for my dad, I had not done it for my mom, and she was already gone. And I
Mm.
always tell people, be sure to get them on video. But what I like about what you're doing is here you are, an investigative reporter. So you look at things differently than the average person. Because I think some people might think, oh, I could shoot this myself, I could do
That's
this
right.
myself. But it's better to have an outside perspective of someone that actually is a journalist that knows how to ask the tough questions that you might not know to ask or might be afraid to ask. And of course, have it edited together professionally and beautifully as a keepsake for your family. And I love the name Keepsake Studios. That's perfect.
Thank you. Well, I will say, first of all, if anyone is listening to this or watching this and you're thinking about doing it for your family, one, give me a call. I'm happy to help. But two, definitely capture your parents, at least on your cell phone, at least get a little bit because it is important. It does matter and you'll want to have it. But Catherine, I'd love to talk to you a little because you get the value of story. You have used it powerfully for years. What
Thank
is
you.
it that you think touches people about edited, created stories versus just kind of a conversation or an interview that you might have? What is that magic that you have found over time?
Well, I mean, even just putting in cutaways that help, accentuate what they're talking about and making it more interesting, like a real movie, right? I think that's important. And like you said, an investigative reporter like yourself, a journalist, is going to know what questions to ask. I definitely think back on, oh, the questions I didn't ask. And, it's important, I think, to get a third party perspective on it, that curiosity. Um, but yeah, nothing like a professional film to really have as a legacy, right? And we all have so many interesting lived experiences. Why not invest in keeping those in a professional film instead of just, like you said, the wedding, the bat mitzvah, but an actual interview style that captures and putting all your photographs in one place
Yeah.
and clips in one place. I
Yeah.
think it's important. Do you have a story that you have captured on film that you could share with us?
Sure. We have a few, but I'll tell you about Angelo Capozzi. So, Angelo is a 92-year-old now. He lives in Tiburon, California, and he's a family of immigrants from Italy. And it was interesting hearing his story because, you think he's almost 100 years old. And you forget going back many generations when Italians came to America, they were not welcome. They were seen as second-class citizens. They were shunned. Angelo remembers when he was a child in upstate New York, they moved to a new neighborhood, and the neighbors did not come over with a pie or cookies or even just a greeting. Instead, he would look out the window and they would be opening the shutters to look through and see, what do Italians look like? And so he remembers that experience of being an
Yeah.
outsider from that time that so many people can relate to now, who are from different backgrounds and ethnicities, maybe not Italians. And so you kind of learn about that arc of history and time and how people become more accepted within a culture, and also how there can be such cross-cultural understanding of shared experiences. So Angelo went on over time, smart guy, sharp guy, to go on to attend very prestigious schools. He went to University of Notre Dame, and then he became a surgeon and a plastic surgeon.
Wow.
And he joined a Rotary Club in San Francisco and ended up devoting much of his life outside of his work to service. And he started an organization called Rotoplast, which was Rotary and Plastic Surgery. And they would travel the world and fix cleft lips and palates for children. And that is
Wow.
still going today. It's been 30 years in operation. They've helped, I think they've gone on 2,000 missions over that time. And he has gone on many of them. And actually, he was working as a surgeon until he was 91 years old. It was
Wow.
literally just this year that he finally said, okay, I think God's telling me to lay down the scalpel and to move on to the next stage of my life.
Talk
So he's
about
the
someone
oldest.
that loves what they were doing, huh?
Right? I know. It's such an inspiration. And he did love what he was doing and felt like he had real meaning to his life because of it.
I
So
think
he
that's
was
what
one of
makes
the
people
people.
live a long life, don't you?
That's
Doing what you
right.
love and feeling like you get up in the morning and have a purpose. And boy, what a purpose he had.
That's absolutely right. And I think community is the other piece of that, right? To
A
feel like
hundred
you really
percent.
build people around you,
100%.
you know.
But I've been thinking about what you do and looking back, not only in my immediate family, wishing I had asked, things to my mom, but also thinking, gosh, I really don't know much about my grandparents and I know nothing about my great grandparents. And it would be so interesting to have had that on film. So any people, no matter what age you are, start thinking about, you know, working with Keepsake Studios with Priya, having that opportunity to capture all this story of your family history. in a professional documentary. What family doesn't want their own documentary? Hello. So I think it's super cool.
So I met Angelo Capozzi through a mutual friend, Lata Setti, and so that's how I'd first found her, found them. And when you were saying that, Catherine, about not knowing your grandparents, it reminded me of a client we're just starting to work with now who found us through some of the press. We've been very gratified to see that we have had some really wonderful press write-ups and articles about the work that we're doing. And so this gentleman, also here in California, was a business guy, a lawyer and a business guy for many, many years. And that's kind of, I think, about what his grandkids know, that he was a business guy. But he has actually taken the time to do a lot of writing about his autobiography and his story, his life. And when you read it, it is like a novel. It is fascinating, the business dealings that he was in. He was working with some very high-end deals, large deals. And then he also did a lot of really interesting community work to bring various sporting events to different counties and cities. And when we talked to him, he said, I feel like my grandkids don't really know me. They just know the sketchiest details about my life. And for him, it's about connection, wanting to make sure that they know who he is and that he also then has a way of entree into their lives in a new way. So it is about making sure you capture those moments for posterity, but also it's about building family connection even now.
Yes, absolutely. Invaluable what you're doing, and really, and fun. You make it fun because you're doing all the work and they don't have to, right?
That's right. And we really do make these lively when you watch. If you go to our website, keepsakestudios.com, we have some clips on there. And you can watch just little snippets of people's lives. And you'll see we use incredible music. We often use music from the time. We add in the photos and the video. But one of the things we really wanted to do was stand out in the marketplace. A lot of what we saw was sort of sad piano music. It was slow fades or slow moves between pictures and very long answers. And what we did was say, no, we want to make this look like a Netflix documentary. This is something that should be able to go on broadcast TV because our team has worked at those very high levels of broadcast television, like you mentioned. But also, my business partner is from HBO and Sony Pictures. So we come with a film eye and make these incredibly captivating. So the music is great. The timing is great. We bring humor into all of these pieces. So there's a lot of joy. That is really what we want this to be, is a celebration video. We are also happy to create content of people who have passed away from what they already have, and we'll use narrative and voiceover to tell those stories. But again, our overwhelming essence of these films is meant to be a joyful experience, Catherine.
I love that. That is so important. Um, and so price wise, is this like customized? Should they just go to the website and you'll let
Yeah,
them
you can get
know?
in touch with us
Yeah.
to talk to you about it. So our prices start anywhere from 15,000 and then go up from there. So it's a worthwhile investment. We try to make it very affordable for the families who want to come in on the lower end. And then if you want a full-fledged documentary, we're talking about more than that, certainly.
Yeah.
But we do work with families because everybody wants something a little different. And some people have copious libraries with lots of archival films and photos, and some people just have a handful. Some people want a 10-minute piece, and some people want an hour and a half. So we
Right,
work with
right.
you we offer some set packages, and then we work with you to see what you need.
I love that. And it doesn't matter if this family is small or big. I know my wife has a huge family, and one time they had a video made about the 80 cousins
What?
and how everybody was,
Wow.
connected. It didn't tell like the whole story, it tell part of the story and then
Yeah.
how everybody was connected. It was cool.
That's pretty cool. I bet there's some
Yeah.
really cool things you can do with some of the tools that are out there today too to visualize those connections. I will
Yes.
say
Yes.
that's something else fun, Catherine, that I've been playing with. I I have been interested in recent years in emerging technology. Most of us, I think have been in some way or another. But even before AI came along, I was really interested in virtual technologies and the blockchain. And so there are two things we're offering that I think are very different from the usual offerings in this marketplace. One is that we're now seeing deep fakes all over the place, right, for video.
Yeah.
So one thing that we're offering is a keepsake seal of authenticity, which includes a notarization of the piece, and then we're also registering it on the blockchain so that you'll have a hash so that you could see in the future if anything has been altered. Just to be able to say this really is what we think it is. It really is my grandfather. It really is my great grandmother in the generations to come. So that's one piece that we're looking at. And the other thing is virtual technologies. And so we're taking cameras into homes and we are filming them. They're little cameras, actually, very non-invasive, but we're filming 360 the space. And so right now, look, headsets are really bulky. The technology is tough. There's a lot of a learning curve to like actually put on a VR headset. But for those of you who have, you know that the immersive experience is so interesting. When you put on a VR headset and you look around a room, you can see and feel like you were actually in that space. And so
Wow,
what would
that
have
is
been
super cool. So you kind of would feel
right?
like you're in the space with your grandparent or something. That's
That's
really cool.
exactly right. How cool would it have
Yeah.
been if I could have seen like my great grandparents in India many generations ago, some of whom were educators, some were entrepreneurs, just to be in that environment, which was so different than my life now, or for you to get to be, with your dad or with your mom or somebody to be with their family in the kitchen while someone's making a recipe that they've known for years.
Yeah, that's super
So
cool.
that's a fun thing that we're playing with as well.
I love that. Well, I can't wait to see all your films. People can visit keepsakestudios.com. I take it, Priya, they can also look for you on LinkedIn, right?
Absolutely. Myself, Priya Clemens, or my business partner, Eileen Merciel.
Okay, great. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn as well, Catherine Gray, Catherine with a C, Gray with an A. And you can also visit our website, showherthemoneymovie.com to see our movie, and or sheangelinvestors.com with lots of great resources on it to help you as entrepreneurs and investors. Priya, I'm so glad our paths have crossed thanks to Lata, also an amazing woman in this venture capital space. And I hope people will start thinking about creating that legacy film for their family, which is probably one of the most valuable things that you could own. I remember thinking if there was ever a fire at my house, I would take that video I have of my dad and my family and their wedding anniversary. I think, I've always found that video and photography, I think, is one of the coolest things ever, that you're capturing a moment in time forever that you could never recreate. And so what you're doing is such a beautiful thing, and mixing your artistry with your entrepreneurship, beautiful thing, because you get to do what you love, right?
That's right. I do get to do what I love, incredible fulfillment. And I just want to thank you for your ringing endorsement, Catherine. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make it a great week.